But as you were refusing to pay these student nurses and midwives, we hear that you have delivered pay increases for already well-paid super junior ministers, for well-paid judges, along with pension increases for very well-paid former Taoisigh. There's no complexity, no review on that front, Taoiseach. It seems it's always very straightforward to cough up when it comes to those at the top. Big money for ministers, for judges, and the people who once did your job, but nothing for student nurses and midwives who have given their blood, sweat and tears for the health and safety of our people. This is shameful, Taoiseach, and it demonstrates once again whose side Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are on. But the people know who was there for them when it counted, and I don't believe that they will stand for this awful treatment of student nurses and midwives. So, Taoiseach, you have a decision to make. You have a decision to make now. Will you finally tell these nurses and midwives that they will be paid?
We need the truth here. You campaigned for the reversal of FEMPI for years, and your party did. As far back as 2013 onwards, you campaigned for the reversal of FEMPI, which involved the payments to the people you just outlined. You know all that, of course, but it suits you to twist it and to distort the truth in terms of the reversal of the FEMPI cuts, because legally, in terms of the reversal of the FEMPI cuts, you cannot discriminate between one group and another. What you can do is delay as far as legally possible you can delay, which is what the government has done. In relation to student nurses, again, I've never said that they're not doing real work. I never used that phrase, yet you come in here and say I did. I never did. But what I would say to you, Deputy, in terms of the testimonies that you have put forward, and indeed other deputies have, they should be forwarded to me and to the HSE, because in some instances they represent an abuse of student nurses and an exploitation of student nurses. And what I said yesterday in the Dáil was not bogus, Deputy. And you've avoided the question deliberately as to whether we want a degree programme or an apprentice model. Your line seems to be it's okay to go back to the era when nurses were doing menial tasks and were at the bottom of the rung of the ladder in terms of our hospitals and in the medical hierarchy, deferring to the consultants and so on. The whole idea of the introduction of a degree programme was to end that era, was to professionalise nursing. And to give opportunities in nurse education so that nurses could take their rightful place in the overall structures within our health service. That was the objective. And the idea then behind that was that first-year students would have clinical placements of 6 weeks at a time. And they were never meant to be working during those 6 weeks. If nurses are rostered for a 13-hour shift or a 10-hour shift, they should be paid. Nursing directors in hospitals are disputing that. And that has now been investigated, and the Minister for Health is investigating that. But there's a very core question here, and it's this, because in my view, nurse education is vital in terms of the progression of the profession itself and the advancement of the profession, and that they take their rightful place in the overall framework within our hospitals. And the cases that were referenced yesterday should be sent in, and there should be an investigation, because no first-year student should be treating a COVID patient. I've said this repeatedly. And if you have evidence that there are patients with dying COVID patients, in my view, that is wrong. That is an abuse. No hospital and no director of nursing should be enabling that to be the case, and particularly in the second wave of COVID. Because it didn't have the same impact as the first wave did on hospitalisations or indeed on ICU occupancy. And we're not refusing to pay anybody. We're not refusing to pay anybody. We have initiated a review of the allowances, which will be finished by the end of this month, and that will result in higher allowances for student nurses. We've applied the pandemic unemployment payment to nurses who cannot, student nurses who cannot work part-time, in other workplaces because of the fear of cross-contamination. We've also, in terms of other supports and financial supports in relation to additional costs as a result of working in a COVID environment, a desire to meet that.
Thank you.